2 weeks before this year's Rioma Marathon, I was feeling a bit off. The students at my school and the teachers have been varying degrees of infectious the last 2 months. One entire class was even sent home for a week, so the chances of catching something were pretty good. Miraculously, I avoided the bug, but my luck didn't hold out. 2 weeks before the marathon, I felt like I had caught something, but I'd entered the taper phase of training, meaning I could stop or slow down my running, so I knew I could afford to rest my body. The first weekend, I opted for a short road trip instead of a run. Imagine, if you will, a Canadian man driving around the remote Japanese coastline, guzzling beef jerky and smashing green tea, listening to podcasts about wrestling and country music artists. Clearly the best medicine. I held out hope that I would recover from this little glitch throughout the following work week and that I would be ready to rock and roll the coming weekend. But alas, my health deteriorated, first with a sore throat, then a wicked sinus infection, and then a cough. My first salvo of beef jerky and green tea wasn't effective, so I fired off multiple cartons of fruit juice, Gatorade, a box of tea, a couple bags of lozenges, hot baths, and I spent my evenings headed straight to bed. Despite my best effort, I was in rough shape on Thursday. My second offensive hadn't stopped my cold, merely delayed the inevitable. By Friday and Saturday, I was unable to work. I had fever, chills, and muscle aches and spent those days under a blanket, shivering and sweating. I had given up hope of running the marathon. There was no sense in thinking I would recover by Sunday. So, Sunday came and went. I thought I would feel more disappointed, but I've lost hockey games before and felt worse. I think it's a combination of knowing that I did everything I could and getting sick was out of my control, and also the fact I'm still planning on running my own individual marathon. The weekend I did the road trip, I was listening to a podcast featuring Bo Nickel, who is a wrestling champion and UFC fighter. He lost a few big fights as a teenager and young man, and he was talking about how he learned not to tie his identity to his results. He said he can enjoy competing more if he's not so serious about the outcome. He is still serious, and he trains seriously hard, but he doesn't let a loss or a setback devalue him. And equally as difficult, he tries not to let a win credit him either. To phrase it another way, he doesn't tie victory or defeat to his identity. He's got a true stoic champion's mindset where he's like, win or lose, the day after the competition, we're moving on, back to training, or on to the next challenge. So that was a surprisingly well-timed podcast for me. I'm confident I can run my own marathon, and with fewer water and food stations and bathrooms, it's going to be a lot harder. So once I'm healthy again, that's what I'm going to do. The Rioma Marathon didn't escape me, it only delayed the inevitable. There are few times in a person's life where they have a clean slate, a reset, where they complete one mission in life and move on to the next. Graduating high school, graduating college, maybe switching careers, retirement, these are situations where people find themselves free to pursue new opportunities or experiences. At crossroads like these, the future is a branch of hundreds of different choices, and as a result, often people find themselves paralyzed by indecision. After the JET program, Jets are faced with this problem too. They are racked with questions. Should I have stayed on the JET program? Should I stay in Japan? Should I move back home? Should I move to work in another foreign country? Should I study? Should I travel? Should I work? What should I do? It's easy for people to drift in situations like this and find themselves purposeless. I have this problem too. My future has a lot of possibilities, and it's difficult to choose a path, especially because I want to choose the best, even though no matter how much I research and ponder, there is no such thing. I've been combating this future dread, or future paralysis, by outlining a rough 5-year plan for myself of things I want to have, accomplish, and the direction I want to head in my life, why this direction is important to me, and then detailing the daily or weekly steps I can take to accomplish these goals. For example, a big scary thing is what I will do for work when I get back to Canada. What career path will I take? It's an important thing. It will likely make up the most of my daily life. To help organize myself and write this down, I bought and paid for a program called Future Authoring. So what was my conclusion? In Japan, I have learned that health is incredibly important, maybe one of the most important things. I want to take this lesson back with me to Canada and do something to help people who used to be like I was, or to prevent people from becoming obese. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Right now, that looks like aiming to be a gym teacher or coach where I can encourage kids to eat healthy and exercise and show the benefits of a healthier lifestyle. I can also relate to adults or kids who are struggling with weight, and this will help me be more sympathetic and take a more effective approach. This is a worthy direction of work, I think, and it would be meaningful to me to help people in this way. I also want to own my own successful gym one day. Right now, I am certainly no expert on workouts or business, but I think offering a service for people to use to improve themselves would be really awesome. You know, it's one thing to be an owner of a fast food shop and do a really good job of it, but the product you're selling isn't really making your clientele healthy or better. It's making them happy. It's a nice break or a treat, but overall on a societal level, I think it makes people worse. Kind of like selling cigarettes or alcohol. You're making money off of harm. I'd rather be in the business or selling a product that people can use to make themselves healthy and better and not worse. I suppose there are outliers of people who can overdo it in a gym, but I think they're the exception that proves the rule. So that's what I want out of a job in the next 5 years. Let's see how close I can get to making it happen. For a week, Kuroshio was blessed with snow, more than I've seen in the last 3 years of living here. My students set to work and crafted a little snowman guy. He wasn't an impressive specimen, but he had heart, and that's what matters with snowmen. While the snow in the mountains was beautiful, it was difficult getting myself outside to do morning training runs in the freezing weather. But for a week I ran through the dark, blizzarding mornings across the slippery streets. It was weird. I noticed how the snow dampened sound. The usual light rustling of leaves, the chirp of birds, the snow just absorbed the sounds and created this very quiet, cold run. It was peaceful and eerie, and it was pitch black as well. Usually when I'm up in the morning, it's still nighttime, but while it's snowing, the snow absorbs a lot of light and actually also obscures the stars, and it makes the world outside somehow even darker. One weekend, I set sail for a waterfall deep in Ehime Prefecture around Uwajima. Along the way, I got distracted by a lesser-known Google Map spot. Usually with spots like this, there is something very mildly interesting to see, but worth the 5 minutes to look at. So I stopped and pulled off the road and hiked down into the gorge to investigate. Little did I know, I was hiking down into a full day's worth of exploration, with multiple waterfalls, just from this tiny little spot. There was some human construction built up around the area. Moss-covered bridges, old dams, and a gazebo that was almost entirely reclaimed by nature. Clearly this place was once more popular, but now it lay forgotten and alone. Perhaps many people would come here on a weekend for a picnic, or a walk, to experience the lush greenery and stunning waterfalls. It was bittersweet seeing this place in such a state, as there was a sort of beauty in the nature reclaiming the man-made structures. At the same time, I wonder what this spot would have looked like when it was being maintained. This was one of the better hiking discoveries I've made recently. I was glad I stopped, as I could have easily driven by and never realized the beauty of what was hidden here. There is a dichotomy in the Indiana Jones movies I've been thinking about recently. First, we have an intense burst of action and hair-raising adventure, close calls, danger, thrill, and discovery. Indiana Jones just scrapes by to escape his peril, and then our scene shifts. We go to Dr. Jones's life as a college professor, where he's working his normal day job, teaching students and working with colleagues in this muted, calm, gray environment. There are normal problems and necessities and comforts of daily life, but compared to the scene just before, these problems seem so trivial. You can clearly see that Dr. Jones has a passion for his area of study. He is an expert on ancient civilizations. He cares about his students and his work, but this job is not what he lives for. In a biography of Steven Spielberg called The Films of Steven Spielberg, the author Douglas Broad says, this is a little complicated, that the character of Dr. Jones created this superhero version of himself in the story. So Indiana Jones created this Indiana alter ego, and he did so to escape the boredom of his life. I feel like I've kind of done the same thing, where I envisioned an alter ego of me who was that superhero teacher, and I embodied that. But when I go on an intense hike, dance in a Yosakoi festival, run a marathon, or undertake some sort of insane adventure over a weekend or holiday, I come back to my Japanese school and it's just so muted and calm in comparison. It's like a lifestyle whiplash. I felt this the strongest when I ran the ultra marathon last year and went to school the next day. The day prior, I had pushed myself farther and harder than I ever had in one of the most intense challenges of my life. And the next day, I was working with students, telling them how to spell dog or cat, and to not forget to capitalize names. It's an odd feeling. It's hard for me to determine a word or phrase to explain this feeling, but I think other Jets or people who live adventurous lives outside of their day jobs kind of probably understand. Even Japanese people have told me that we Jets do more cultural or adventure things locally than the Japanese people do. I'd say it's because the type of person who becomes a Jet is usually more open-minded, adventurous, and risk-taking than the average person, so there's a surplus of these types of crazy people. But perhaps there's also something about living or visiting a foreign country that compels you to explore the culture more thoroughly. You're less familiar with it than your own. Anyway, I'm afraid I'm not sure what conclusion to draw from this observation, just that it's something I've thought about when I've been exploring. I have a busy May coming up with knife making, ice skating, a half marathon, and my school's Japanese graduation ceremony. In the meantime, I have a Ryoma marathon to conquer and a bold way to do it. Let's get revenge. But until then, that's all for now. Take care and be bold.